Yeah, very dark. And my wife reminds me every night when I go home that it was her idea not to vaccinate my 3 and 4 year old boys. And
Good for
so,
her.
yeah, I try to take credit, but I can't because again, I blindly trusted the science. And again, just because I got a degree from a fancy university doesn't mean I know the details of what's happening. I was just sold that science works, and in general, science does work. And I just assumed all of the narrative of it worked, and it seemed like a good idea. So again, I could be swayed as well, and I thought people that didn't believe in vaccines were the same ones that thought censorship was real and thought that a Google search might not be impartial. And now I'm realizing that all of those things are not true, and I think a lot of people are as well. Tell me, what is the National Adult Vaccination Plan? And then I want to also ask you, how does this play out over the next 6 months? And what can we do about it if we're listening to this right now and we're nodding our heads?
Well, the national, there was a bill that was, well, let me back up a step. In 2010, Bill Gates funded, put up $10 billion in funding to, to dedicate 2010 to 2020 to be the decade of vaccines. He started GAVI, which is the Global Alliance of Vaccines and Vaccination and Immunization, I think in about 2003. And he funded that and started that going. And GAVI is sort of like the go-between. They're the people who, are kind of like the purchasers of the vaccines, and then they distribute them out through UNICEF and the World Health Organization to third world countries. And Bill Gates had this idea that the vaccine industry needed to be more coordinated and develop kind of like just-in-time inventory sort of things. So then he developed GAVI and funded it. And then in 2010, they decided that this was going to be the decade of vaccines, and it was going to be in sync with Healthy People 2020, with all of the rules and all of the suggestions and all these things that were happening in the US to regulate every corner of our lives. And so they started ramping up the vaccination schedule and making sure that all these funds, like the Sections 317 funding happened, and vaccines for children funds were funded, and all of these organizations, these three-letter agencies inside of the U.S. got all of this money funneled in to make sure that these kids were vaccinated. They started a program called the Combo 10. And Combo 10 is that the kids get every dose of 10 vaccines by the time they're 2 years of age. And even Blue Cross picked that up and said, if you're a pediatrician and in your office, 63% of the kids in your practice get every dose of those 10 vaccines by 2 years of age, we're going to give you a $400 per kid bonus. So they funded that. So if anybody doesn't think that vaccines have to do with money, you're sorely mistaken. Now, pediatricians are getting $400 per kid bonuses from Blue Cross Blue Shield if these kids are vaccinated. And so we've got the documents to prove it. So they started that kind of in 2010, and it's kind of percolating along. And then in 2015, I think they kind of went, oh, we forgot the adults. We forgot that we have to vaccinate the adults. So in 2015, they released the adult vaccination plan. And part of the adult vaccination plan is to set up an infrastructure to make sure they get all the shots they're supposed to get. And to make sure that everybody, large organizations like large churches and large businesses all knew about the vaccines that were available for adults. And one of the third goal was to create, to get adults to demand to be vaccinated. They wanted to generate demand so that the adults would say, yeah, they'd go into their doctor's office and say, hey, doctor, I'm here today for my flu shot or my pneumonia shot or my shingles shot. They wanted to have adults start to increase the demand for these vaccines. And that's what's going on right now to a large degree. When people hear all of these things about this vaccine's coming, it's a subconscious message, in my opinion, that they're subconsciously programming people to go, yeah, I want to be vaccinated. Yeah, get me that vaccine. Get me that. Yeah, as soon as that's there, I want to have that. That's part of that adult vaccination plan. And also the more nefarious side of that's not really in print, but they're talking about it, like we talked about a little bit earlier. We can't really force you, we can't mandate these vaccines, but we can make it pretty uncomfortable for you to not be vaccinated. So the adult vaccination plan came into place in 2015. And so now here we are in 2020, right? Right at the end of the decade of vaccines, they had 10 years to put all these things in place. and all include all the different elements. And if you really want to see their real playbook of what's really going on a global level, if you go to intelligence.weforum, WEFORUM.org, intelligence.weforum.org, set up a free account, and then when you go back and log in, look at what they're doing. That is their complete playbook, Brian. And Gates has funded it. He talks about it. They hail Bill Gates as one of the best people ever, the best philanthropists inside of this. And you will see all the different industries. You'll see the 17 UN sustainability goals are all hailed and what they're trying to do there with that whole nefarious program. And it's complete and utter control of every element of your life everywhere on the planet.